Welcome back to the Beyond the Sun podcast. This is a podcast where you can gain insight about leveling up for self worth, career, and income in a practical and holistic way using an astrological approach to self discovery and going beyond the sun sign. I'm your host, Nubia. After becoming my own astrologer through completion of a structured year-long course with a trusted professional astrology and astrology teacher, I leveled up my own self-worth, career, and income by applying what I learned. Now I take that wisdom and help others as an astrology-centered career consultant to level up in those same areas. Last episode, we talked about our community and finding ways to experience nurturing as parts of the process to self discovery and therefore transformation. This episode is focused on how we can explore joy, pleasure, creativity, possibly romance, and more as a way to just let our hair down and have fun, and how that's an integral process when it comes to self discovery. So, we have a guest for you. I'm so excited for you to meet our guest, our first live guest on the podcast. And if any of this resonates with you, I invite you to leave me a comment. I invite you to join in terms of subscribe, turn on notifications so that you can be notified of when I upload the next episode. And share. If any of this resonates with you, share it with someone. Now, sit back, enjoy the discussion, and thank you for tuning in to the Beyond the Sun podcast. I'm your host, Nubia. Find me on IG. I'm on Instagram at Closer to Bliss, but I might change that. But in any event, this is a YouTube podcast at Beyond the Sun podcast. So thanks for tuning in. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. I am so excited to introduce our guest. I know her as Charmaine, and I'll ask you, Charmaine, to please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charmaine. Um, I live in Brooklyn, New York. Lived in New York, born and raised. I feel like I've touched most of New York all my life. This is the only home I really know. I'm West Indian, Caribbean, from Barbados. Um, I'm a professional, I guess. I've worked as a teacher, trying to pivot at the moment, looking for a new profession or career. Um, I love being outside. I love music. I love dancing. I love being Black. I love anything to do with being Black, and I just love to connect with people, and I love to laugh.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Charmaine. And I love the timing of this interview because um, in the previous episode, I shared that I gave insights on how identifying and aligning with community can aid in the up leveling process when it comes to income and career. And we met, community brought us to this discussion. We are in a separate, we are in a community, and that's how I met you. And um, engaging in that community is what helped us to, to even get to this part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love that you gave a bit of background about yourself, and that was actually leading to a couple questions I have for you. This episode, as we all know, um, is centered on joy. It's centered on creativity, and it's centered on our passions. And this episode talks about, or I intend for it to be about how engaging in our passions and how engaging in fun, engaging in things that bring us joy are essential to us being well rounded and being able to bring our whole self to whatever endeavors we go toward. So, you gave us some hints, or not hints, you shared already, but I was going to ask you what's one passion that you have that you enjoy that you can share about, and you gave us two already.
Um, I'll start with the biggest one I shared, which was traveling to Barbados about a month ago, pretty much. Um, so my family's from Barbados. My mom's from there. My dad's from there. It's my lineage. Um, it doesn't sound like it, but I do have an accent when I'm like around family, and being in Brooklyn, I'm surrounded by Caribbean people. So it's a deep part of me, a spirit, and it's starting to feel more spiritual to me lately. Um, so this last trip that I went on it felt like a calling for the last maybe 12 months or so. I felt this very like inner, like innate um calling to like to just go. And I kept putting it off, and I was like, let me go over here, let me go somewhere new, let me go to like the West Coast for the first time, let me go visit some family, because I was feeling very I wasn't feeling very like worthy of going at the moment, I guess, which is an interesting way to put it. Mostly because I said it feels like I have other important things to do besides go there, because I'm used to going for like the fun stuff, like for carnival, or for like, summer vacation, which is the stuff I love. I love doing that stuff. I've gone with family. I love to party. I love to go to the beach and just chill. But something in me was like, if that's what you're going to go for, then go somewhere new. But I didn't go for those reasons.
Mm.
Um, and it feels kind of boring. I went with my mom, and we were there for 9 days, and we did absolutely like nothing productive.
I love that. I want to interject a moment because you mentioned that you connected with your heritage, right? You went with family, and your lineage, your heritage is in Barbados, and you felt a calling for over a year to just be in the mundane, be in the everyday, and reconnect to your roots. So while there, you still got the opportunity to be yourself and to experience joy, because it's okay to experience joy with your family, right? Sometimes some of us, have, healing that we need to do with our family. And healing takes levels, right? It happens on levels. But anyway, you can, you enjoyed time with your family. You said you were at the beach. You what were some more things that you gained from that experience, or continue your sharing as you'd like to. So.
So I'll back up a little bit by saying that I went with my mom, and initially when I kept getting this like, urge to go, I was like, I feel like I can't do this just by myself. I have to go with my mom, or go with my immediate family at the time, which was my mom and my stepfather. My stepfather recently passed a few days before Christmas last year,
I'm so
and
sorry.
during his illness, and in the last 12 months, especially in the last 6 or so before he passed, my mom was rallying as like a caretaker, as a wife,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, as much as I need this trip, I think she needs it too. And I booked the trip, didn't tell her, I just had the dates because I knew she'd say no
Oh,
as a mom
wow.
would. So I was like, I'm not telling her. And I almost didn't go. And my older brother convinced me, and because he knew all the circumstances around what was going on at home. And he said, you absolutely should do it. Now, mind you, I had no job at the time. I'm doing this out of my savings,
Mm-hmm.
out of faith, out of like this strong urge to be like, you need to go because you don't know. I don't know what's waiting for me there. And this whole time I've got like this whole fantasy in my mind, like I'm gonna go and it's gonna be like, some message from God is gonna descend from the sky. I'm gonna be like, I know what I need to do, and now none of that happened. It was just me and my mom. We stayed in
Mm-hmm.
a guest house. We're used to going and staying in a different part of the island, but I said I want to make this as easy for her as possible. I want her to feel like she can get around. I want her to feel at ease. And we just spent that time bonding together for the first time in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that looked like watching Netflix all day and just like geeking out over Korean game shows and just like things
Yes.
that I'm seeing my mom in a different way for the first time as a grown adult too. So this trip felt very it was a very vulnerable experience, felt very personal. And there were times where I didn't know how things would get done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there were some I had like you said, you're a little bit of a planner and I am as well. So in my mind, a couple of things didn't go as well as I thought,
Mm-hmm.
but I let it go. I'm learning to let things go. And it's so interesting how in small ways, I guess God was kind of showing me like I've got your back. There are people out here that got you. And what I
Yes.
mean by that was like every day somebody was sending food to our house.
Oh my gosh.
Every day somebody sent or picked us up and was like, let's go get some food. And at the time I was like, wow, this feels healing
Yes.
because um and I didn't and that there's so many bits and pieces of me going on this trip that like helped me see myself a little bit more, help this relationship with my mom. It was through food, it was through walking through the neighborhood, which is called a gap, or walking on the beach, or just spending time with my mom. But there were so many ways that kind of revealed layers of who I'm becoming, who my mom is at this time, who we are, who how our relationship is starting to change and
Yes.
evolve. And I could go on and on and on.
Charmaine, I really appreciate you sharing parts of your vulnerability with me and with the audience that's listening because um when a family member departs, it's really that change is really something that regardless of, let's say, if you could prepare for it, it's you still don't know how you'll actually um, cope. There are something that I want to touch on. I took a couple notes because you mentioned that um, it didn't feel responsible of you to take this trip. And I want to highlight something um, because I bring astrological, I take an astrological approach to self discovery and to leveling up. I want to highlight that having fun, it is the very moment that we think it is irresponsible of us, or that we have experienced so much weight, so much heaviness, or so much change that we shouldn't have that fun, is when we need to have fun. And it may not seem like it in the moment. And thank goodness for your brother encouraging you to
Mm-hmm.
take that trip. Sometimes we do need a community. Sometimes we do have to rely on our family and those near us to see in us. Um, because we're in an experience, and sometimes it will, even though our family is experiencing that as well, everybody has a different vantage point. So thank goodness that your brother encouraged you to do that. You mentioned that you didn't know how things will get done, and as you testified, even things got done. It doesn't take you, the singular, to do everything. And look at how embracing the change, that's another highlight that the fifth house in the zodiacal wheel um, represents change. But embracing the change can help you pivot, doing things, taking a break away from what you do every day, to experience some change for the sake of change, for the sake of joy, can be very beneficial if you reflect on it. And not reflecting in the moment, because when you want to go swing in the park, you're not reflecting. You just like do it because it helps you feel good, it helps bring joy. So again, thank you for sharing that vulnerable part, and learning more about the family that let's say your lineage, the area. You had to physically explore what's called the gap in Barbados, the streets and so forth. I love that. Speaking of Barbados, Charmaine, I mentioned this to you some time ago, but there's a thought leader who has passed on, but who I am learning about in a separate community. And that thought leader um, is really helping me to explore the ways that I can level up by shifting into um, my self concept. Like, who do I see myself as, and how do I present myself to the world? And so, this topic just ties in, I think, amazingly, because that thought leader is from Barbados, and his name is Neville Goddard. And the fact that your lineage is from Barbados and you felt a calling to go there, I just think it's interesting to correlate into this weaving of this story. So thank you very much. What else? You mentioned you like to dance. Did you get to dance? Did you get to experience music? Did you get to embrace your idea of being black? I mean, I'm sure you get to do that in a city like NYC, but I wonder, was it different in Barbados?
I it was I didn't dance and I didn't do a lot of listening to music.
Mhm.
That part of my routine was something I kind of left behind while I was there.
Mhm.
And it was mostly through visiting the museum for the first time. And mind you, I've been to the island so many times, but this was my first time seeing the museum. It was going into Bridgetown, which is the capital. It's taking the local transportation, like the ZR, which is like a small white van. And there's like the transport board buses, which are the local government buses. It's just integrating into the culture were
Mhm.
the ways that I felt fed.
Mm.
Uh, and I probably shouldn't have been walking through gaps that I'm not familiar with because you're never supposed to go where nobody really knows you like that. So I
Okay.
got away with it a little bit because I could speak the lingo, but
Okay.
I do not recommend that for anybody in any country at all, especially here in the States. Even we know that you don't go in nobody's hood where you don't, that's dangerous. Don't do that. But and I did it every day because I was determined to go to the beach in the
Uh-huh.
shortest. I took a shortcut, but just seeing I just wanted to see my people. I wanted to hear conversation. Um, I wanted to be part of the day to day. And I'm used to going in the summertime where it's, festivals and the children are off of school. But for the first time, I was seeing life just happen where the kids wake up and go to school. We stayed across the street from a cricket field, and we saw every day that people would come and go to practice or have games. Um, that's just how I felt fed that way. Uh, my mom and I, this is the first time we went for since the pandemic, since the before times.
Wow. Yeah.
That was like 2019,
Hmm.
um, when my grandfather, her father, passed away.
Wow.
So, and since then, the government has done several things to kind of boost the economy and boost culture. One of those things was they constructed this wall with the surnames of all of the families on the island.
Oh,
For the first time, my mom and I went to see it, and we saw the surname of my grandfather,
wow.
her father, and the surname of her mom, which is my grandmother.
Wow.
And it was like, and I'm as all this is happening, I'm watching my mom see things in a different way, in a very
Hmm.
in a joyous, childlike way.
Hmm. Hmm.
First time in a long time I haven't seen I or ever, if I'm being honest, is that I haven't seen my mom experience something new without reservation, I'll say.
Hmm.
And so she's seeing the names of her family, her ancestors, and I'm taking pictures and I'm kind of just like hanging back because I don't it didn't feel like a moment for me to be like,
Mm.
you know, because just being there was enough.
Okay.
I have my mom with like pictures of her touching, and they have it spelled out, and people have designs on the it's like this huge wall. It's a I
Wow.
can't remember the name of it, but it's this huge wall, and it's like brick by brick. They have
Wow.
the names, and I'm seeing her like touch these names, and I can only imagine the memories that are coming to her mind because she's told me these stories. My grandfather has told me these stories of my family growing up here in the neighborhood or in the gap.
Hmm.
So like seeing your name on a wall, your family name, especially as a person of the diaspora, it
Hmm.
kind of like it blows you away. I'm
Right,
seeing
because
these names and I'm
there's
like, this is where it starts. This is who I am. Like this was the final chapter in a book where there's many chapters, and I want to crack that book wide open and like get to the beginning somehow.
right, because the beginning doesn't always start with the person who owned slaves.
Right. Exactly.
Like there was a history prior to that.
Exactly.
Or, every person doesn't have that beginning, not even that. That really wasn't the beginning for everyone. The beginning, was prior to that, and everyone does not have a history of being owned.
Exactly. And
So,
I'll even go as far to say that I might be the latest chapter in this book because I am the product of that lineage of my ancestry. And I kind of go back and forth with my mom about this all the time because the women in my family are kind of badass. And it's only taking me up to now for me to be like, I am no different than the women of my past. They're very strong in their own individual ways. They did not take crap from anybody. They raised children. They provided for their family. They were kind of fighters. And I'm recognizing all these characteristics in myself.
yes.
And it's funny that you use the word testimony because I I'm not joking, but I am at the same time. But I realize how this season of my life is I keep saying I'm living my testimony right now.
Yes.
It's hard. It is so hard. Over the last 12 months, so many heart-shattering feelings have been brought to the surface. And I said,
Mm.
this is all for, I don't know the reason. Truthfully, I don't. I have no idea what I'm experiencing. I don't know what I'm getting prepared for,
Hmm.
but I asked for it because I said, I know I'm supposed to go far. What it is, I don't know. But I said, if I want to go to the place where I know I can be, I have to prepare to lose things. I have to prepare to rise up in a way where I've never mentally, emotionally gone before. And so that's kind of coded for like depression, anxiety. Like I am experiencing all these things in this moment. It's hard,
Yes. Yes.
very, very hard. But
And
I'm building the fortitude. I'm building the skills. I'm using tools. I'm leaning into ancestral practices, or at least trying to, like, paying homage to the people that came before me, because I said, if this feels hard now, I can only imagine how it felt for them.
yes.
They did it before. They were strong and they lived to be a very old age. And I said, I can't be here without what they've done to get here. And so I feel very grateful to have gone on the trip, to kind of have my eyes open in that way, and to spend that time with my mom, to for us to lean on each other, because we're it's the two of us now. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
I excuse me, I had to cough a little bit, but there are some I love how you're drawing on your instincts, because one thing that I say about this podcast is that you don't have to have, like, there's no prerequisite to know about astrology to listen to the podcast and to gain some insight from it to help in the transformation. You're obviously experiencing a transformation, a major transformation, because I like to think that we all experience transformation at some point, or like it's ongoing. Um, but I'm guessing that if I were to look at your birth chart, and not only look at your birth chart, but look at the planetary transits that are happening right now, there is some movement with the planet Saturn, which is about time. Saturn focuses on time. So it will take a long time to do things sometimes. Saturn is connecting, it's moving into um, Pisces, which relates to our feelings. Pisces is a water sign. So it's kind of bringing form to what can overflow. Like sometimes when water overflows, it kind of needs a structure to contain it, or it'll just go everywhere. Water will. And so Pisces also has to deal with um, not just being a water sign and emotions, but the unseen. It kind of encompasses everything. And it's kind of hard to talk about Pisces the same way it is to, maybe it's hard to talk about the planet Uranus and the planet Neptune, because Neptune rules Pisces. But anyway, um, with you mentioned that you don't know what's next, but you're still choosing to embrace that, and you're relying on the tools that you do have. You're relying on what you do know. And I want to encourage people who are experiencing a major transition right now, that it's important to take time out. It's important to take time so that you can tune into what is instinctual to you. Rely on yourself. Life is a process of self-discovery, and sometimes we'll have to take that time out. Before our call, before the recording, you mentioned that there's a self-care type of element, where I thought it was important to share this. Sometimes self-care can be challenging and hard because we're faced with emotions that come up. They just surface.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, I was just laying here, I was just watching a movie, I was just listening to a
It
podcast, and
really is that way. Yeah, it really is.
yeah.
I was watching something before this recording, and I said, wow, this feels like a parallel of what I'm experiencing, and how
Mm-hmm.
these characters are having to communicate in vulnerable ways, and be honest and be open to the people that they love. But that's not always easy. It's hard.
Right.
Um, what I was gonna say is that you're talking to a person that has a chart mostly made up of uh earth and fire. So leaning into knowing that my body has to heal, my mind has to heal. It feels like I'm breaking every single rule that I've been conditioned to follow. And I wrote that down recently. It's that I'm all my life I noticed that I followed the rules and I didn't really ask questions or break the rules. I'm a Capricorn, so I'm about responsibility.
Okay.
I'm a
Okay.
Capricorn sun and Capricorn moon, so I'm like responsibility.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't
Yep.
know this, people, but I could tell that Saturn rules, you have Saturn. I could tell. And it sounds like also you may have recently experienced a Saturn return. I don't know. I haven't
have.
looked at your chart,
I have.
but I'm guessing that you've experienced a Saturn return. So you confirmed that because the way that you're sharing about, the many things that are happening, the falling away to rebuild. Um, you,
Stripping everything that I
yeah,
feel like I've known. I'm choosing to let it go and to release it. Even the conventional rules of like finding a job. I feel like there's if you want to be if you want to be somebody in the world in terms of career and profession, there's a certain formula to follow, and I'm finding that that's not always how it works. And that I can't let the outcomes of that affect how I see myself, because I know that I'm somebody with gifts and talents, and that when I'm dedicated to something, I put my all into it and I build really great connections. So it's a very insecure time that I'm going through, and I'm kind of
yes.
riding it out. There are some days where it's very, very hard, and then there are some days that are very easy. And I also have to allow myself to be like, there's no band-aid for any of it. And there
I love
probably never will be. It's just going to be this. I'll look back one day and this will be a season, and the season might come back and I'll say, well, this is an old friend. So we're just going to
Mhm.
walk it out. It's a lot.
Charmaine, yes, you
A
mentioned
lot.
not feeling worthy at first to like experience a couple things. I hope that with your reflection and drawing on your ancestral lineage and looking at the badass women in your life and your family, that you realize that you are innately worthy to go forward in some of the ways that you approach new experiences.
I do. I feel as deep as these feelings bring up insecurity and unworthiness. On the flip side of that, the way I speak to myself, I realize that I've always kind of prepared to be like, you're not going to discount yourself. You're not going
Awesome.
to talk down to yourself. I've I'm used to using positive language for me to allow myself to make errors, to make mistakes. And if this trip was going to fail, it was like, well, at least you tried. You would never know, and if you didn't try.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of connections, you mentioned you're really good at connections. Where can people connect with you? Because I understand that you are experiencing a job search, or you're really just concerned, curious if you even want to, the way you're approaching the job search. So aside from job searching, where can people connect with you, so that they can get to know you and to see more of what skills you transform and what skills you have built on, and how you can help your fellow human and help an organization if you choose. Where can people connect with
So
you?
I'm gonna throw out my LinkedIn because that's a new social media platform that I'm using to build community specifically with Black and Brown people, and more specifically Black women.
Okay.
Um, I and it's my first name and last name, Charmaine Amy. I above everything, I want to serve us. Like they are, and for people that understand and know, like Black women are doing it out here, and we can box if you feel otherwise. But find me on LinkedIn. I want to serve my community. I want to work on behalf of them. I want to open doors for them. Um, Once again, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. I just trust that paths will cross where they're supposed to, and that somebody will recognize, like, if this is the mission that you're supposed to be on, I have I have a resource for you, because I strongly, strongly, strongly advocate for Black people, for Black women, and for all identities that they fall under. So that's
That
where I
was
be at.
beautiful. Okay. I can't follow that. Like that was a great place to end this conversation right now. Um Charmaine Amy, Amey, for those listening on LinkedIn.
That's my surname. That's my lineage.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the Beyond the Sun podcast. And everyone, please go and connect with Charmaine if you want to talk a little bit more, if you want to get to know each other. If this episode moved you in any way, give a thumbs up, consider subscribing, share this with someone who you think this could make their day. And thank you for tuning into the Beyond the Sun podcast. I'm your host, Nubia. Thank you for listening to our guest, Charmaine Amy. And we'll talk to you next time. Be well.